Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's JPR, and welcome back to another video. So, it goes without saying, we all like Pokemon here, except very few of us like every Pokemon. I mean, you try having 895 kids. Some of them are bound to be ugly. But there are just some Pokemon that, for whatever reason, have not vibed well with the general fan base. These are your anti-Charizards, for lack of a better term. So today I'm going to look over some particularly unpopular Pokemon, give some of my thoughts, and see just why they're generally disliked or just flat out unpopular. A quick disclaimer though, these are not Pokemon that I personally dislike. Well, most of them. And if you like any of the Pokemon that end up on this list, that's perfectly fine. It would be boring if we lived in a world where everyone liked the same 5 Pokemon. Trust me, I live in that world. Starting our list off is the Unova Monkey Trio, Pansage, Pansear, and Panpour, as well as their evolutions Simisage, Simisear, and Simipour. I can definitely understand why they're not received too hotly. First of all, this is a whopping 6 Pokedex slots for what's basically a great value version of the regular starter trio. Even though Unova boasts the largest number of new Pokemon with 156, you can't help but think what they could have done if this trio wasn't created. The trio just seems generally uninspired. They all share remarkably similar designs, and there had already been quite a few monkey Pokemon before this, including Chimchar, who is just an infinitely better liked fire monkey. These guys basically just exist to throw you a bone in the first Unova gym battle against Chili, Silent, or Cress. I don't really understand the logic behind that decision either. They wanted to make the first gym challenging no matter who your starter was, but immediately backpedaled on it 3 minutes later by saying, "Here's a free monkey, have fun." I don't get what they were going for here. The only other thing that I personally dislike about the monkeys is that if one of them shows up in Unova, you know the other two are right around the corner. They're like YouTube advertisements. And now for a quick word from the sponsor of today's video. There's no sponsor. But one stands above the rest of the clan in terms of being, well, below them. Back in 2016, a poll was held to determine who was the most popular Pokemon of the first 720. Volcanion not being included since it hadn't been officially revealed yet, with the winning Pokemon being made into a free distribution at a later date. Unsurprisingly, Greninja ended up being the big winner with over 500,000 people participating in the poll. Wow guys, way to shoot for the stars with that big distribution. I hope it was worth it. Only the top 12 Pokemon ended up being revealed, but they decided that it was worth knowing that out of all the Pokemon, Simisear finished last. So maybe that whole competition from Chimchar thing ended up being his ultimate undoing. However, Simisear would be spared in a Reddit poll conducted 3 years later in which 52,000 people voted in. Here the sample was notably more skewed in Generation 1's favor, with Charizard ultimately reclaiming his title as the most popular Pokemon, whereas Greninja did not even crack the top 25. Even my boy Arcanine surprisingly ended up in the 3rd spot. Hey, I'm not complaining. But since the sample size was only 10% of what the previous poll was, there were notably 4 Pokemon that received 0 votes overall. First up is yet another Gen 5 Pokemon, Gothita. This makes sense to me. I don't hate Gothita by any means, but it and its evolution certainly aren't Pokemon that you hear people raving about on a daily basis. Or, actually, I've never heard that at all. It is notably a version-exclusive Pokemon too, which with very few exceptions generally doesn't make the Pokemon very popular among a large crowd. Sure, there are some exceptions like Arcanine and Sirfetch'd, but just generally they tend to be more on the forgettable side. Keeping with the Gen 5 trend, Electric also received a grand total of 0 votes. This one surprises me a bit because I've never met anyone who outright hates or even dislikes Electric. I just think it's a classic case of being that awkward middle stage Pokemon that everybody forgets about, seeing as how Tynamo and Eelektross are both generally well-received Pokemon. We did discuss Electric earlier this year in my Forgotten Pokemon video, where I noted that not only has Electric been exceedingly rare in the core game since Gen 5 ended, but he is also one of the few Pokemon to never star in its own anime episode. So I would have to bet that's probably what pushed him over the edge compared to most other middle stage Pokemon. Silcoon also ended up with 0 votes in this poll, but don't worry because Cascoon somehow ended up with 2 people voting for it as their favorite Pokemon. Honestly, I might be a fraud for this, but to this day, if you put Cascoon and Silcoon side by side and take their names away, I couldn't tell you which one is which. They're just not very memorable Pokemon. And certainly having 2 that look almost identical is bound to hurt at least one of them. I'm not sure what makes Cascoon so much cooler in the eyes of those 2 people, but man, poor Silcoon. And the last Pokemon to receive 0 votes was none other than Yungoos. I guess it makes sense, Gen 7 had just come out, and out of all the new Pokemon you could choose as your favorites, the generic Route 1 normal type is probably at the very bottom of most people's lists, even despite his comedic resemblance to Donald Trump, though even Gumshoes pulls that off much better with him managing to pick up 4 votes. Not sure if that's winning him anything in the Electoral College, though. So as far as official results go that I could find, that's the end of it. Sadly, they didn't publish a big loser in this year's most popular Pokemon poll, though I'm just gonna go ahead and say it was Stantler. This man had an entire social media movement behind him, and he comes from arguably one of the least competitive generations as far as popularity goes, and still didn't crack the top 30 for that region. And the only reason people talked about him at all was because of how unremarkable he was. We've discussed a lot of unremarkable or just forgotten Pokemon up until this point, but there are a few that people just generally seem to react with disgust towards. First and foremost is Aromatisse. It's certainly an interesting Pokemon design, appearing to be a hybrid of a dancer and a plague doctor given its mask-like face. I think it's just a little too bizarre looking for a lot of people. Even if the concepts are neat, it's just not really a Pokemon that you look at and go, yep, that is a visually satisfying creature. There's not really a way to describe this Pokemon's appearance other than strange. It may have some supporters out there, but I think the haters are definitely more numerous. Garbodor is another Pokemon in a similar boat. A lot of people just don't like it because of how it looks. Like, yeah, Muck is an equally lazy and uninspired design, but at least you can look at it without feeling nauseous. Trubbish you can at least look at and say, well, it's a trash bag, but at least it's a kinda cute trash bag. Garbodor looks like he would crawl out of a sewer and swallow you whole. The good news for Garbodor is that he ended up being the only Gen 5 Pokemon to receive a Gigantamax form, and that combined with his role in Oleana's team seems to have swayed a little bit of public opinion in his favor. It only took about 10 years, but he's definitely not as loathed now as he was before. Even most of the Vanillix haters went away after a couple years, which just goes to show that any Pokemon can become popular over time. Or at least tolerable. And the last Pokemon we have to discuss today is Maractus. I'm sorry, I love Gen 5 and it pains me to do this, but I'm just going along with what the people say. Maractus isn't necessarily hated like the monkeys or Aromatisse, but it's definitely one of those Pokemon that you have to wonder, why does it exist? It's oddly rare, it's not great at doing much. We already had a cactus Pokemon in Cacturne. It's a different kind of cactus, but it's a cactus. It's just kind of there for the most part. In fact, when it was first revealed last year that Game Freak would be cutting the decks in Sword and Shield, there was quite a big meme circulating about Maractus getting into Galar in favor of other fan-favorite Pokemon. Again, they could have chosen Stantler just as easily, except the funny part is that Maractus actually did end up getting into the Galar decks, whereas Stantler did not. Man, he really just can't catch a break. And those are some remarkably unpopular Pokemon within the community, a lot of them being unpopular for various reasons. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this video, every little bit helps me out, and leave a like down below. And comment if you think I missed any particularly unpopular Pokemon. I'm sure I did, there's an awful lot of them. Anyway, that's it for me. I'll see you guys next time.